All right, Greg Cormier is here today. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. What's new? What's happening? We just had this conversation. Let's have it again.
Yeah, no, keeping busy. A lot going on. It's good stuff.
Yeah, man. So we went to college together, sport and leisure kinesiology program a
Yeah,
few
good
years
time.
ago. It was a great time. We learned a lot of fun stuff together in the gym.
Yeah, 100%.
And now you're coaching. You're doing a lot of good things. And yeah, I kind of reached out. You share a little bit about your story and kind of what led you down the path that you're on now. And I reached out and you agreed to share some of your story, and I just appreciate that, man. So thanks for coming on.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me on. I guess I can just jump into it, I guess. We're
Yeah,
ready.
for sure, man.
Awesome. So, uh, I'm like you said, I'm a coach. So I do like behavior change transformation coaching. I primarily work with women and particularly like busy moms. That's kind of my niche and who I work with. And there's a reason for that. And I think it's a reason like a lot of people don't expect. They probably think like when you work with moms, probably like, okay, I had a great relationship with his mom and like he probably saw her struggling and that's why he wants to help other ones. And it's like part of that's true, but it's also like on the other side of it. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I grew up the oldest of 8 siblings with my mom, and my dad has 2 siblings as well. So I guess I'm the oldest of 10. And so I grew up with a single mom on assistance. We are always pretty poor, didn't really have a lot, but we always just had like enough. But in that time, there was like so many of us that we were all just like running all over the place. And she was like definitely overwhelmed. And part of it was like, it's hard to get what you need when there's so many people around you needing something else as well. Right. So it
Yeah.
ended up that uh, we ended up actually not having a good relationship. And I ended up moving out when I was like 12 or 13, just next door. So thank God for my grandparents. Like my grandmother and my grandfather kind of raised me for the most part. But because of a lot of reasons, when I was like a teenager, there was just felt like there was like something missing or I wasn't getting, and ended up falling into drinking quite a bit and just hanging out with a lot of friends because it felt like at that time friends were more there for me than family.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like sometimes it's like what you're missing there you find in your friends, and sometimes those friends don't always have the best hobbies and
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
into the best activities, but you just
It's usually
go.
like I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's usually like that group of kids, right? And like, I found myself there too around that age where they're like, you find like a family and then you kind of just, yeah, they're not doing good things sometimes.
100%. Yeah. And you don't really try to justify too much. You're like, these are the people I'm with and this is what we're doing. But I didn't even realize how much what I did then was because of what happened when I was younger and how much it affected me till like this year. So um, I have ADHD. So when I was going through college with you and stuff, it was undiagnosed. So I didn't know I had it, but everything was like harder. There was like low self worth. Always just felt like I didn't fit in. It almost felt like after like the end of 2 years, I ended up having no meaningful connections with anyone outside of college after that, like, and continuing to talk with anyone. But when I was growing up, I was in like drinking and relationships a bunch of times, like bad ones, and just sticking around way longer than I should have, putting up with way more. And when I was younger, I remember that that's what was like going on around me all the time. Like my mom was definitely so burnt out with so much going on, way in over her head, and then fighting with her boyfriends all the time. So that's kind of what I saw, and like that's how a relationship is. It's just fighting. It's like putting up with stuff, and I I don't know,
Right.
because I didn't feel like I was getting that. It's like now I realize the reason why I was drinking all the time, why I was putting up with that is just, I just felt like I wasn't enough, and it's almost like a lot of things growing up made me feel that way too, especially with ADHD. You just screw things up and you do things like different. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, why'd you do it like that? It just makes you feel like you don't know how to do things right, and things take like extra steps. Anyways, so it was only this year when I got diagnosed, or last year when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I could start to think clearly and focus. I'm like, okay, so like I was bad. I was literally trying to not be like my mom, I guess at the time. I was like, that was the worst thing I could be, is like that. Because it's like, don't trust anyone, feel like no one loves you, no one cares, because you're just in a bad mental health place. Like she was in a bad place. So she's not, I don't think she's a bad mom. I think she didn't take the time she needed for her mental health and to get things all figured out and to get where she needed to be. And because of that, it had all these effects. So I don't want to say it's her fault, but because of the situation that it was, that's how things evolved into that. And I realized at one point I was like 18, had an apartment, drinking all the time, so much partying going on, like waking up being like, what the hell happened last night? Like, I don't even know. And
Right.
starting to get to that point where you just feel like angry, or you don't trust anyone. You feel like no one really cares. And it's like you could sit there and be angry about, I didn't get what I need, or like be angry at the people who didn't give it to you, or you can try to change it.
Right.
And that was kind of like where I realized I could sit here and be angry all day that I didn't get that, or I could try to do something different. I realized I was kind of becoming my mom, and it's almost like the way that she reacted because of her mental health taught me that that's how you're supposed to act. And my mental health was going downhill, and I was like, okay, whoa, I'm recognizing this, and this isn't how I want to be. I don't want to push everyone away like she did, like our fathers and stuff like that, different stepdads, and just constant fighting, and stepdads that weren't always the nicest around a lot. And so instead of just constantly drinking because I didn't like my situation, I decided like I need to do something different. I need to do something about this, because just trying to cope with everything, which is what most people do, isn't actually
Right.
fixing anything, right? It's like you drink because you're not happy with the way things are going. You drink because you're
Yeah.
not happy with your life. You're self-conscious because of how you look, but if you don't do anything to change it, you can't like trick yourself into liking yourself. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I decided, like, it's almost like you wake up. Like when you're younger, it feels like you're just in or on autopilot, kind of. And then
Yeah.
one day you wake up and you just have a moment of clarity, and you're like, what the hell is going on? Like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? Like,
Yeah. So yeah, like, so what was that like? Because that takes like a little bit of self-awareness and kind of some insight and some outer perspective on yourself to be, because oftentimes, like, it's very easy to get lost in that life, and that spend a lifetime in that sort of that place.
yeah, 100%. It feels like I was in there for years, and it was like there was no chance of coming out of it for a long time. And I think it was I got out of a relationship at that point, and something was like, okay, this isn't what I want. This is fucked up. This is not the way I want to keep going. I was like, I need to do better, or the next time I get into a relationship, it's just going to be the same thing. Like, I need to
Right.
work on me. Something just snapped. And that's when I started exercising and actually getting into fitness. And I didn't know this at the time, but when you have ADHD and you start working out, it actually helps you maintain focus. And I think that that's what gave me enough focus when I was undiagnosed to actually figure out what I wanted. That's like when that clarity kind of came in. That's like, I want to do more. I don't want to just work a normal job. I don't want to just keep drinking every weekend with nothing else to do. And nothing against people that do that. Like, that's fine. If you go to work, you take care of your stuff. Like, that's awesome. I like having a beer or two, like having a glass of wine. I love stuff like that. But I don't like black out anymore. And I know why I was then. It's just like reality was shitty.
Just
Sorry, I
trying to
lost
escape it.
my train of focus there. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, that shift, and you said, like, yeah, you broke up with a girl and then you started exercising to help with the ADD, and that was kind of the shift to moving towards better things
Right.
in your life.
Yeah. So that focus led me to realize like I wanted to go to college, but here I am in my situation. I didn't have a lot of opportunities or people that could really help me because we were pretty poor. Like I didn't have anyone that could be like, here, I'll pay for college and stuff like that, or go there. And so I had to pull myself out of this drinking and just doing nothing all the time to, okay, I need to get a job that's like stable. I got to get going. And I started working at Muscles, and that was good. And I was making good money. And I was like, you know what, this is awesome. I like the physical work because I was working out. So I like throwing 100-pound socks into a tank in a boat. That was awesome. But I was like, how can I do the things that I actually enjoy, like for a living? How do I make this into something else? How do I better myself? And I dropped out of school. I didn't drop out of school. I got taken out of school in like grade 10 and actually homeschooled. So completely that social aspect when you're that teenager, it was like pulled away where I'm like, okay, now I'm home. And it was because I actually got caught smoking weed by my mom. And she was like freaking out. She's like, that's a bad place, taking you out. So then I got homeschooled the last 2 years. And
What was
so
that experience like? Did she homeschool you?
yeah, she tried. But like I said before, and this is nothing on her, this isn't her fault. There was too much going on,
Right.
and it just she couldn't give me that attention that I would need, or that help that I would needed to actually go through with it. But I ended up, my grandmother got me a tutor once a week that I would go to. And I did that for like a year until I felt like I was ready, and I got my GEDs, and then yeah, chill for a while. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm working, I'm figuring out, I'm starting to work out. I'm like, okay, I want better things. I don't want to sit here and feel this like hate. I want to better myself and not just sit here and cope with it. I want to do better so things get better. And so then I applied for college, and I was like, at the time, I was like, how the hell am I going to pay for this? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. But I took that first step. It's like sometimes you don't need to have the whole process planned out. You just need to know like what's the next step. So I
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
to career development services and talked to them, and they helped me try to work out an application. And I think I actually missed the deadline the first time, and I had to wait until the next year. And that was the year that you started as well. So that was the year we started together. And so I filled out the application. I got there. I actually had to get help through skills to apply for it. And in between years of school, when everyone else was out getting their hours that they needed, because we needed a certain amount of on the job training, I actually had to go back to work at Muscles and worked all summer to save my money that I needed for the next year of school. So I was just like, most people would look at the amount of work it would take and be like, there's no way, like that's not realistic. I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to
Yeah.
make it work, because like I can't not. And that's how it is with my clients a lot of times. It's not always that they know where they want to get to, but they know they don't want to stay where they're at
Yeah.
anymore. They're like, I
Yeah.
don't care what I need to do. It's like, I can't stay here. And that's where I was at. So I was like, originally when I went in, I thought I was going to be a personal trainer. That was kind of the plan. And that evolved as I was going. And then when I got out, I started my business, and I had a gym in the basement. And I was like, okay, I think I worked with 10 clients before I realized this isn't having the impact that I thought I wanted it to. So then I started going online. So within a year, I was training people online fully. And then I was like, okay, exercise is awesome. Like, this helping a lot of people, like trainers and fitness people. They're such a big help to people, that help them get that exercise in, because they need that, and they need that that self-care. But with me, I was like, there's something missing. So then I went into learning about nutrition. I was like, okay, I got the fitness and nutrition. This must be it. And after that, I was like, no, wait, there's more. And I was like, okay, behavior change and all this. And eventually I just ended up working with my coach, and just getting mentored under him. And he was already doing what I wanted to do. And I was like, this is what I should have done from the beginning. But along that journey, because of the ADHD and all these things, and because of those experiences, while still learning how to really love myself, I think that's why I didn't make any connections in college too, because I just instinctively felt like I wasn't good enough. Like no
Right.
one else would really like me. Like I appreciated you when I was in there because you were one of the only people that actually is like, you're always down to partner up in class. I didn't really have like many other people. Like you can just tell it's like you were a good person. And yeah, so I really appreciate that while I was going. It's like you, Max, and Austin, always down to partner up there. So pretty awesome. And
Yeah, silly squad.
yeah, exactly. We're always just like messing around, like not too serious.
Yeah.
That was good times. And so yeah, you remember little things like that when you're there, especially whenever. So I was like, I'm not here to make friends in my head, but really it's almost like because of that mental health stuff going on and ADHD and low self-esteem, it's almost like I felt like no one would like me anyway if I tried. So it's
Yeah.
almost like that rejection. You don't want to get that
Wall.
rejection, so you're not
You're
even
putting a
going to
wall
try.
up. You're putting a wall up to prevent pain. It's like they're
Exactly.
gonna reject me anyway, so like I'm putting a wall up and
Yep. 100%. It's
putting
kind
in
of
my
like
time getting the fuck out of here.
exactly. Yeah, 100%. And that's what I did. And it's like, okay, it worked out well in the long term, but it's kind of like we talked about earlier, that fear of rejection, not putting yourself out there also prevents you from all the good things that could come from putting yourself out there as well. Right.
Mhm.
In like that sense, it could have been like friendships, fun times, like laughs and stuff. With my clients, it's like not putting themselves out there. Yeah, they won't fail again and feel that disappointment, but it's also preventing themselves from feeling that success and that confidence and that happiness that comes with doing what you set out to do. But so you have to stick your neck out. That's like the biggest takeaway I took from that. You got to risk it. You got to shoot your shot. If you don't, you'll regret it for the rest of your life, because they say you regret the things you don't do more than the things you do. And I think
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
100% true.
Oh yeah, man, for sure. I think there's nothing worse than regretting not doing something. Like, oh, if I just did
Right.
it, like, you know what I mean? Because you can always say, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like things, if it doesn't go the way you want, it
Right.
didn't go the way you want, then you go to the next thing, right? But
100%.
not doing it, that's a whole nother layer of if I did that, or yeah,
Yeah, 100%. So it's
if
like,
only.
yeah, it's like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's like you're afraid of failure, so you don't want to try, but you automatically fail because you didn't even give yourself a chance to
Yeah.
do it. So
Yeah.
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Didn't even take the free throw, man.
Yeah, you didn't even take the chance to learn something, right? You don't even get to
Yeah.
learn if you don't try. At least if you try and fail, you usually learn something from it, but you
Mhm.
don't even get that opportunity when you don't even try. So that's what's the scariest thing
Yeah.
for some
No, that's
people.
very true too. You win or you learn,
Yeah,
right?
you win or you learn. There's no losing. Like, how do you fail if you don't give up? It's almost like
Yeah.
people say, like, okay, I'm gonna try this once, and if I don't do it right, I suck and I'm no good.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the standard that we hold ourselves to, because we think for some reason we think everyone else gets it right the first time,
Yeah.
and it makes it look easy because that's what they show. They don't show all the struggles and all the times that they failed and how many times
Yeah.
it didn't work out, but they didn't give up,
Yeah.
right?
And that's
And
really what it is. Like it's all about persistence, consistency, keep going.
yeah,
Like you'll fail 1,000 times and then you'll
mm,
be successful. Yeah. And I think it's like um really highlighted with social media too, right? We post all the good stuff. You go on someone's
yeah,
business page, for example, it's like success. You go on
yeah,
someone's personal page, it's like success,
yeah,
you know, in quotes, but whatever success is for like, you know what I mean? But it's all like the cliche stuff. But then, you don't see all the life, the day to day. That's what really life is.
yeah, 100%. I would agree, because no one wants to show that struggle. Everyone wants to make it look like they're doing great. They don't want people to know that, like, on Instagram, I'm doing great, but this month I almost gave up and couldn't get out of bed one day because I just didn't
Hmm.
know why, like what the point was. And I think
Hmm.
more people need to see that. Like, that's a reality. Like, I think there's still about once a month, even today, when it's almost 3 years for my business, that I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I know that feeling.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like almost makes you feel like you want to give up, but it's not because you're not passionate about it. It's always just because you're burnt out and you're not taking that time you need to for self-care and for yourself. So you're almost every time I almost gave up, it was because I was doing too much and not
Right.
because I didn't enjoy it anymore. It's because
Yeah.
something needs to change. And that's sad when too many people do give up because they get that feeling and they think it's just because of what they're doing. They don't
Hmm.
recognize that it's just because you're not taking the time for yourself. And especially with the clients I work with are women, and a lot of times they're moms, like self-care and taking that time for themselves is on the bottom of the priority list,
Yeah,
right?
it's especially with moms, I imagine it's just always like nurturing, taking care of others first, and then it's like the classic in the airplane, putting
Yeah,
you got to put your mask on first before you put it over your child.
100%. And that's I use that analogy a lot with them. It's like, why do you think they tell you to put on your own oxygen mask first? Because if
Yeah,
you pass out, you can't help anyone. If
yeah,
you burn yourself out, no one else is going to be able to get any benefit of that. You're not going to be able to give as much as you want because your cup's empty. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup. You
hmm,
need to eat, and especially when you have a lot of people depending on you and a lot of stuff, it's even more important to take
yeah,
that time to recharge, because it's like if you don't, then a lot of things are going to get left behind, or a lot of things aren't going to get done. Whenever I know I have a big week coming up, it's like if I don't take the time to get my workouts in or take some time to relax and just take it easy, it's like things are going to get missed. People aren't going to get written back, and I'm just going to like retreat. And my clients are like, I think one of the reasons why I can help them so much is because I understand kind of where they're coming from in that aspect. Like because I had ADHD, it's
yeah,
everything's overwhelming sometimes. It's like the
yeah,
simplest things. It's like, okay, it's like all you got to do is like eat healthier and exercise. It's like that's like a mountain, and you're barely getting through the day because you're not taking the time to recharge yourself. And it's not, I don't want to say it's like they're not taking time like they don't want to. It's because they try to do everything else first. And at the
yeah,
end of the day, if they have energy left, they'll do it. But usually at the end of the day, you're so burnt out from everything. You're just like, all I can do is sit on the couch, eat these chips, and play on my phone and scroll. And it,
yeah,
and like, I've been there a lot of times too. And that's
yeah,
one of the things about it. So like not taking care of your mental health and not taking time for self-care will break you. It'll prevent you from reaching any goals you want. Another big part of it is feeling like you have to do everything right. Like, because when you feel like you're not good enough, you overcompensate by trying to do everything perfectly. And usually
yeah,
what happens is that you criticize everything you do and you don't put anything out because you think it's not good enough. One of
yeah,
the best pieces of advice I ever got was to take imperfect action.
yeah,
Just do the thing without knowing all the steps. Just get started, take that first step, and you're going to learn. It's like instead of ready, aim, fire, my coach says ready, fire, aim. If you let
yeah,
the
yeah,
shot
yeah,
off, at least it's going and you can adjust
yeah,
the trajectory. But
yeah,
if you never take the shot, you're not even moving forward.
yeah. No, I
If
think
that
that's
makes
so
sense.
true. And like yes. And yeah, I love everything you're saying. And I think like, like taking your time for yourself, like you said, like you must have went through it with your business and looking back on things you've been through and stuff. But like I noticed big time with my, like I'm doing the same things you, coaching and business, and like it takes like, and being a coach in general, it takes ruthless self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing for people to understand about themselves. Like, and that's what I see with people, and I'm sure you do too, is like just step number one is just finding like the awareness of like how you're feeling, because it's like you're going through the day like a whirlwind,
Yeah.
and you're so busy, and it's like you said, you get to the end of the day and you're burnt out, and you just do what you can,
Yeah.
but you don't even have like you don't even have the self-awareness yet to understand like how, like when you're getting burnt out, or how to like decompress, or um how to do those things. It's just, you've just been on this track, this going
Yes.
um on these train tracks for a long time. So
Right. Yeah. And I like how you said that. It's so true. It's like we're all naturally set off on like a default path, right? And too
yeah,
many people think that it's like, this is just how I am. This is just what I'm doing. This is
yeah,
where I'm going. But
yeah,
I love the train track analogy because it's like you can change the tracks if you recognize it and you make yourself aware of it. And too many people just don't recognize that it's just, this is what I'm doing. because you
Yeah.
can't change something if you don't know that you're doing it in the first place. So
Yes.
a huge part of what I do with my clients is bringing that self-awareness, helping them understand themselves better and what's actually going on so that they can recognize it. And then when you recognize it, you can do something about it. You can make it different. You can change the outcome. But as long as you don't know why you're doing this and why you're doing that, it's
Yeah.
going to feel like, how do I stop doing that? It's like the
Yeah.
first step is always recognizing it and having that self-awareness. So the more you understand yourself, the better you're going to be, because you're going to get better at recognizing how to make those changes and recognizing what you actually need to do.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And then like being able to, I just think it's such a important skill, like being able to understand like, oh, I'm starting to feel burnt out, or like, oh, I need to go for a walk today, or um I need to eat healthy, or I need to like do some yoga. I need to do something to make me, or I need to do a hobby. I need to do something to make me feel better today because I'm not feeling good, you know. And it's like having like um, healthy habits, healthy tools to be able to use and, you know, build into your daily practice to be able to like, you know, just be a happy, healthy version of yourself.
100%. Yeah. It's like you need those tools, because like one part of it is like knowing what you need to do. The other part is like knowing what you need to do to actually do it. Like if everyone that wanted to be happy, healthy, just needed information, they could find thousands of hits on Google with one Google search. Like
Yeah.
information isn't the problem. We
Yeah.
all have these like limiting beliefs and lack of self-awareness that hold us back, that we don't even know most of the time exist unless you have a certain level of self-awareness. It's like, why can't I do this thing? It's like, okay, because you believe that in the past you failed, so the same thing's going to happen again. You had a
Yeah.
bad experience, and there's a part of you that wants to protect you from feeling that way. So it tells you, just relax, just don't do anything. Don't
Mhm.
risk it. You're just going to fail again. And it sounds
Yeah.
really critical, but it's like that part of you is trying to protect you from something. And too often with like, I recognize people are like, oh, I hate that part of me. I hate when I do that. But it's like, if that part of you is actually a part of you, it's like that part wants the best for you, but it's just going about it the wrong way.
Mhm.
So instead of just being like, get out of here, I don't want to look at you, it's like then that part gets upset because it tried. So it's like, maybe it's like, take the time to be like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, why is that part of you trying to tell you to relax? Honestly,
Mhm.
usually it's actually because you need to. You've been going full steam ahead, and that part of you is like, hey, you got to slow down. Like, you're going to burn yourself out. But
Right.
you get upset and you're like, no, I got to finish this and I got to do this and I got to, and then beat yourself up when you don't get it done. So it's like
Mhm.
a vicious cycle of like being upset with yourself, doing something, getting burnt out, doing the thing you didn't want to do, beating yourself up again, starting all over. Right?
Yeah.
It's, we need to recognize that pattern, and that's the first step in trying to break it. And it's never that you have to beat yourself up harder. Like, being critical on yourself never helps. That's what makes you want to give up, because when you try to make a healthy change, you're hard on yourself, and then you just get discouraged and feel like you can't do it.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. And it's always like a big part of it too is like, just like you said, like getting burnt out. So not doing it sustainably, like trying, like putting yourself forward, like you're in a bad habit and it's like, okay, I'm gonna do the thing now. But then you just dive right into the deep end with
Yeah,
no structure of like, how do I do this sustainably and how do I do this correctly? And, you know, small steps are huge. So
that's
like,
so
you
true.
know, and I'm sure that, you know, that's the first thing you work with your clients too, but it's like build one habit at a time. Like you don't need to eat just spinach. You know what I mean? Like you don't need
Yeah,
to work. You don't need to work out 7 days a week. Like let's
yeah,
just start. You know, let's just start somewhere. Let's get one
exactly.
workout in before we get 100 this month. You know, and let's lose 1 pound before we lose 50. You
Yeah,
know?
so true. It's like that. You need those little steps. You can't go from 0 to 100. And all or
Mhm.
nothing thinking is like one of the biggest things. Like, I'd say probably one of the biggest mistakes most people make when they try to make a change is that they try to do everything perfectly and get discouraged when they can't. They feel
Yeah.
like they have to do everything perfectly, or it's, there's what's the point? And it's
Yeah.
just not true. Actually, that thinking is what prevents you from actually making long-term goals, because you feel like what you are doing isn't good enough. And
Yeah.
if you focus on like 1% wins every week, you'd be 52% better by the end of the year. But no
Yes.
one thinks of it like that. They always want the quick results, the big jump, and that leap usually results in you falling on your face because you went too far too fast before
Yeah.
you were ready. So you got to take those baby steps and like build the wins. And it's not about doing more. There's certain things that you can do that have better results than these things. So they're called like big rocks versus like the small rocks. Like I don't know if I'm inherently lazy, but I mean, I would rather do less things that are more powerful than more things that are less powerful. So it's like
Yes.
there's a couple things you really got to focus on. Like in my clients' world, it's like, okay, protein with each meal, at weight training, because when you're working with my clients, I don't have to get in details. Anyway, weight training, protein, like a lot of time I talk about intermittent fasting, and understanding yourself and taking that time for self-care is like the fourth thing. If you do those four things for a year, you would be amazed by what would happen. But too often we feel like, okay, we did this week. What can we add now? Here's four more things I'm going to do now, and add and add and add. And I think an analogy I like to use, like too many trainers and people in general try to put too many rocks in their backpack while they're climbing up the mountain towards the goal. They think, okay,
Yeah.
the more rocks I put in, the more strength I'll gain. I'll be so strong. It'll be awesome. But you got to put one rock in at a time, get used to carrying that weight. So when you add the next one, you're already used to the ones you're having, so you don't drop all those rocks, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
That makes a lot of
Anything
sense.
anything you're doing that's not sustainable, it's like, what's the point? This is a temporary thing,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the whole fitness industry. Like January to February, the gyms are full, and then they're not. And that, like, yeah, that's the biggest problem. I think that's kind of like where personal trainers and coaches usually come in.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, and I think there's some that are better than others. I think there's some people that get into it with good intentions and just think that it's all about the information. It's like, all right, here's your macros, here's what you need to know. But people don't eat macros, they eat food, and people
Yeah.
don't need criticism, they need support.
Hmm.
And that's where so many people are afraid to reach out and ask for help, because they think this person's going to be like, you got to do a million things and here's all this, when you're going through life with already all these expectations on you and all these things you already have to do.
Yeah.
It has to be, like you said, that one step at a time, that baby step, so you can actually get it incorporated and actually keep doing it. And so I lost my train of thought there.
I think that goes into training too, and then like that's how I like to train. I'm sure you do too. Um, but it's like you're training, like the things you're doing in training is for the long term as well. It's like you're looking at like longevity over um anything else, like maybe like the way you
Yeah.
look, or like I try. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about more about the training stuff all day probably, but like I try not to focus on like like depending on their goals, like if they want to look a certain way, but it's like um I try to focus on functionality first and long-term health, and like the ability to learn, live a healthy life for their whole life,
Yeah.
and be physically able and mentally able.
Yeah, you're on the right track, man. And a lot of my clients I work with are telling me like they're surprised by how much of what we talk about in our coaching sessions isn't about your workouts or your nutrition. It's about like your mental health and your mindset, and like what's holding you back really. Like, okay, you
Yeah.
didn't do what you wanted to this week. What happened? And it's not like, oh, what happened? Like you're in trouble. It's like, what do you think? And like genuinely being a curious person that wants to help someone, and
Hmm.
them feeling that. It's like a mix of like strength and empathy at the
Hmm.
same time. But the mental health is such a big thing. Like nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, it's not that they don't know what they need to eat or that they don't know what exercise to do. They could
Yeah.
get that from the internet in a second, like we said. It's
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
don't know why they're not already doing it. They don't know
Yeah.
what's actually holding them back. What's this limiting belief or this protection mechanism that's stopping them from doing those things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like the first step is identifying it, on making sure that you take your time for your self-care. Because like I said, if you're 9 out of 10 stressed, no one's going to want to make any changes, right? You
Mhm.
can't do it. And mental health, it's like burning yourself out. It's like not helping anyone when you
Mhm.
think about it. The people around you aren't going to get the best version of you. You're not going to get the best version of yourself. You're not going to be able to do the things you want to do, and you're going to make yourself feel like you can't do anything. But really, you're just running on empty, and you're not recharging your battery.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the most important things. And yeah, so I would say like the biggest piece that most programs are missing, or most people in general are missing from their lives, is just understanding mindset and mental health and who you are, and like getting that self-awareness to know, hey, I need to go take this break. Like I need to
Yeah.
have this piece of chocolate cake, and not
Yeah.
feeling bad about it. Like
Yeah.
it's like mental health and self-care isn't optional.
Yeah.
It has to be mandatory, because if it's not, there's going to be a big list of things that come before that, and it's going to be so much harder to do those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like almost like I don't know if it's like an old school mindset, or if it's just maybe it's the perception of training. And maybe we all seen Rocky, but it's like
uh,
to think like we need to like be super like run in the morning and lift weights and punch the bag and eat nothing but good food. And
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? We're not training for a fight. We're just training for life, and it's like,
yeah,
it's a long haul. It's about longevity.
100%. And I think another thing that plays on people's mental health a lot when you said that is like comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like you're looking at, oh my God, look what they're accomplishing, and look at what they're doing, and we're the same age, and like I'm not doing enough.
Mhm.
Comparing, like say, like comparison is the thief of confidence. And nothing will make you feel worse than looking at someone else who's doing better than you and telling yourself, I should be there. When in
Yeah.
reality, like no two people have the exact same experiences, situations, starting points, or like goals, honestly.
Yeah.
Like maybe they were doing that for 2 years before you even started, but you're just looking at what they're doing now and what you're doing now and feeling like shit because you're not there. Do you know what I mean?
There's
So
also like, I thought about this one a lot. Like there's also like everybody's on their own path. Like you can't compare like, and it's so common and like everybody does it. It's like subconscious, I think. Like,
mhm.
but there's also like part of it where it's like, if you're to compare yourself to another person, it's like you're not even comparing yourself. Like you're not even going to do what they do. You don't even know what you're going to do, and it's
Mhm.
not going to be what they're doing. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah,
if you really apply yourself and not even think about what anybody else is doing, like that's where your landing point is going to be, or your path is going to be. And it's going to be
yeah,
nothing like anybody else's path, the same way as theirs is nothing like anybody else's path. You know what I mean?
yep,
So it's like
100%.
understanding that you're going to have your own path, and it doesn't really matter what anyone else is doing, because you're not them, they're not you.
Exactly. Yeah, too many people try to be like someone else they think that like they want to be like. And what
Yeah.
happens is that a lot of people struggle with like imposter syndrome, like I did when I was starting my business. It's like, who am I to be doing this? Or you're like trying to copy someone else. But
Yeah.
it's like in reality, it's like you're never going to be as good as them because they're the best at being them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to be the best at being you, because
Yeah.
like if you look at it, like things that there's not a lot of are rare, right? There's
Yeah.
only one of each of us. We are the most rare thing we can have. We are unique. We shouldn't waste our lives trying to be something that we're not. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're just going to constantly feel like, why aren't we good enough? It's like, because you're not trying to be what you're supposed to be. You're trying
It's
to
like
be
that
something else.
Dr. Seuss quote, no one's youer than you.
No, I love that. Like that should be
Yeah.
in psychology books and stuff. Like so
Yeah.
true. No
Yeah.
one's fewer than you. I like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, so like mental health plays such a big part, I think, in so many people's lives, and doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish. Like not taking care of your mental health, burning yourself out, comparing yourself to others, like expecting perfection is like a huge one. It's like don't do that to yourself. It's like life's already hard enough with enough people criticizing themselves. It's like, or criticizing you maybe on the outside. It's like, don't criticize yourself as well. That's not what you need. How do you feel when you criticize yourself for not doing something right? Is it
Mhm.
helpful? Probably
Yeah.
not.
No. Yeah. And it comes down to like, I think it comes down to like really, you know, like how do you feel? And
Mm,
it's like, and I think there's always like a deep seated fear of like maybe rejection in there, that
mm,
I'm going to lose something if I do this, or I'm going to lose something, I'm going to lose people. But,
yeah,
really when it comes down to is like your connections, like your family and friends that are like, that you love, like the people you love, and odds are like, this is like classic thing, but your mom's still going to love you. Your friends are going to still love you, even if you fail at this little thing, and it's like, once you kind of get over that hurdle of like I'm not losing anything, like you,
right.
and as you get older too, like I'm sure you understand and have like you understand like what's actually important and the people in your life that are actually important, and like
Mm,
you know things like when you see that things don't matter to you as much. It's like it doesn't really matter if I try this and I fail, or if this isn't perfect. Like the main thing is trying. I'm not going to lose anything, and the things that I might lose really aren't that important anyway.
right. 100%. It's like the people that matter won't mind, and the people that mind don't matter. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
exactly.
you got to do it. If someone gets upset at you and like gets pissed off that you tried something, or mad at you that you failed, it's like fuck them. Like really, it's like they don't matter if they weren't supporting you. And it's not like you
oftentimes it's
shouldn't try
their
to. Yeah,
oftentimes it's their insecurities projecting. They're projecting their
100%.
insecurities.
There's a saying, it's like hurt people hurt people.
Hmm.
And like you can see that in the real world, like those people who just are angry and they're just mean, and it's like they need they need you not to be shitty with them more than probably anyone else, because they're probably harder on themselves than they are on anyone else. And it's so hard to think of it that way. But something I thought of a couple months ago, I put a status up about it. It's like, if hurt people, what could healed people do?
Yeah, yeah,
I thought that was kind of cool. So, but the only way you heal is like, it's like not that you're cut or you're broken, but it's like you got to look within. You got to get that self-awareness and figure out, if you don't like something about yourself, like, why is that? If you're not doing something, why is that? And no
yeah,
one asks most people these questions, like, what do you want? Right?
yeah,
What's
yeah,
important to you? And then it's like, sometimes for my clients, that's the biggest thing for them. It's like, they're like, whoa, I like understand myself now. It's like what I want. I thought I just wanted this. Like
yeah,
9 times out of 10, a client comes to me for weight loss, and usually at some point throughout the 12 weeks, they're like, this was about so much more. And I'm just like, it always
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's amazing how like yeah, I talked about this a lot on this podcast, and I'm sure you've seen it too, like how it just affects every other facet of their life.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. Usually it's the weight loss. That's one of the most common, and then once that starts and the whole shift starts with the mindset and the training and the healthy habits and the self-care and the mental health, it's like all of a sudden like everything else starts changing, and it
Yeah.
becomes completely about something else, like just being the best version of yourself, being happy, being um yeah, just changing for the better, self-growth.
100%. Yep. I say 100% a lot. I had one client there and be like, hey, don't say 100%. Like, that's not realistic. I'm like, yeah, you're right. 80%.
Yeah,
That's, I got to say,
95%.
95%. Yeah, got to have that little wiggle room in there. No, but it's so true. It's like they want the weight loss is the surface level thing, but the real
Yeah.
reason is like 5 levels down. There's a thing
Yeah.
called like the 5 whys to figure out what your why really is. You need to
Yeah.
ask yourself, why do I want to do this like 5 times? And by the fifth why, you'll actually have the real reason. So
Yeah.
it's like, I want to lose weight. It's like, really, you want to just feel confident. You want to not feel like things are holding you back. You want to feel
Yeah.
healthy and happy and like you have energy to go and do what you want to do and
Yeah.
wear the clothes you want to wear.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it affects every single area of life. People, it's like some people don't like that I focus on weight loss, and they don't like the idea of tracking the scale. And to them, it's like, okay, that's like saying someone that wants to work on their budget doesn't want to look at their bank account, right? They want
Yeah.
to improve things, but they don't want to look at it. So some people argue that people get really negative feelings when they look at the scale. And so is the solution to stop looking at the scale? Does that fix anything? Or is it to fix that relationship and understand that that's just a number? That's just like
Yeah.
separating the data from the drama. And it's like at the end of the day, after you figure out what you actually want isn't even the weight loss, it's like how it affects everything else, your confidence, your relationships, your work. When you feel good, you go out and you try to do more, you have more opportunities, you get more chances. And at the end of working with my clients, usually they don't have that same feeling when they look at the number because they fix their relationship with it. They have a better relationship with the scale and with food, where if they just tried to avoid it because it didn't make them feel good, it's like
Yeah.
it never would have got to that point.
It's like
So
sweeping it under the rug.
yeah, yeah. And it's always one thing I learned the hard way, and this is like the universe, like just trying to be a dick, it feels like, is that the hard thing that's always scary and that you feel like you could never do or you don't want to do is always the exact thing you need to do to grow.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's like, why? Shit, now I got to go do it. And you're scared and you're like trying to talk yourself out of it, but
Yeah.
you need to. It's like not trying because you're afraid of failing. It's like trying is exactly what you need to do, but you got to also
Yeah.
give yourself that room to fail and know that failing is just part of the journey. It's like you either win or you learn, like you said
Yeah.
earlier. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's like that's part of it. I lost my train of thought. I had something really important that I was going to say around that. Earlier,
There's,
you said something, and it made me think of something else my coach says. It's like, are you playing to win or are you playing to not lose? We talk about
yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
like like when I say that, what kind of thoughts come to your mind even?
Well, that's just like, if you just relate it to like sports,
Mm,
like, and the 100% stuff you don't take, such a popular saying. But if
mm,
you're not even trying to win, if you're just coasting and trying not to lose,
yeah,
you're probably going to lose. You're not
right.
you're not trying to win, right?
Yeah.
But I just love what you're saying about like being scared of failure, and
Mhm.
like, if you like, basically success is just failing 100 times and then being successful on the 101st.
Yeah, exactly. It's like not
It's like,
giving up when you want to. If you don't give up, how do you fail? Because you still have another chance to succeed.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
only it's only when you give up that you really failed because now there's no more shots to take. So as long as you give up, even when you feel
Yeah.
like it's not working and how am I going to do this? One thing that got me through a lot of days that I saw, I didn't make this, someone else did, but it's like, I'll quit tomorrow. If
Yeah.
you feel like there's just no way you're going to do it, you're like, oh, it's like, all right, well, I'll finish this day. And if I still feel like it, I'll quit tomorrow. And then when you get up, if your day doesn't go as planned, you say, oh, okay, I'll quit tomorrow. Because then it feels like you have the option to get out, but you know, okay, I'm going to finish this day. And
Yeah.
it's crazy how often the next day comes and you're like, you know what? I can do this. That was just a bad day.
Hmm.
And like, as long as you don't quit that day and throw in the towel and give up and say, I'm never trying again, there's no
Yeah.
way you're not going to eventually get there.
Yeah.
So it's like, we'll come back to the play to win versus playing to not lose. It's like playing to win. It's like, are you going to go for it and try to get whatever you want, reach your goals? Are you going to actually try and risk failing? Or are you going to play to lose, AKA avoid rejection, try to avoid eating carbs because you think that that's the solution instead of doing the actual things that are going to get you where you want to go? you got to be playing to win. And playing to win means deciding that you're going to do something and going. You can't be like, okay, I'm going to try. And if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to back out. Imagine if Eminem was like, okay, I'm going to try this rapping thing. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to go apply for another job and just do that
Yeah.
instead if
Yeah.
people don't like me, right?
Yeah.
So he was playing to win. And that's just one example.
Just lose yourself, you know, that last battle.
Yeah.
You just,
Oh man, don't know how many times I like had that on, just being like, yep, I got one shot.
This is it.
And yeah, and yeah, it's just like you got to take care of your mental health. Like no matter what you're doing, if you're a busy mom, if you're a business owner, if you're working a normal job, if you're stressing out about things, it's like that's a sign that you need to take that time for you, but not beat yourself up about it, because then it cancels out the benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. And, you know, I think that's like something people need to be aware of too, is like you said, like there will be those days. There will be days where you don't want to do it. You know, and that's like a common misconception of like people that are fit and people that are, or even just successful in anything, any domain, anything, whatever it is. That like, and then also like they would post, or you would see them in, like in the competition, you know, like the best time. So like, there will be the bad days. Like there's going to be a day, no matter what you're doing, where you don't feel like doing the thing. You're like, the self-doubt is at an all-time high. You don't feel like doing anything. You question what you're doing. You feel like, why would I do this? What gives me the right to do this? Or I don't want to do this, or like, I just can't do anything today. And it depends what else is going on in your life, but you're always going to have I think everybody's going to have those days, you know, especially if you're trying to do something. But the key is understanding that a bad day, or a bad 2 days, a bad 2 weeks, if something terrible happens in your life, a bad 2 months, a bad year, a bad 5 years, a bad 10 years, is never too late. It's like, this isn't the whole life, and I can make a change. And even if it's 1% today, 1% effort, it's still progress is progress. Whatever it is, you know, whatever action that is, I can take it and I can start to take a step towards where I want to be.
Yeah, 100%. Like so true. One of the biggest things that I hear when I'm talking to my clients when they're done working is that the progress, not perfection, is what helps them the most.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, you feel like you have to aim for perfection. If you just change that to say, I'm going to aim for progress, even if it's 1%, that's realistic. That gives you room to mess up, right? That gives you room to know, like, you're human. It's fine. There's going to be a bad day. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's like, did I work out one more time than last week? Did I drink some water? Did I get out of bed? Did I put on pants? Right? It's like, you just gotta aim for that 1% better and focus on progress, and just, you'll eventually get there as long as you don't give up.
Yeah, man. Just I'm a big fan of like 5-minute actions, or you know, like one small action a day. So if you take like 5 minutes or less and just read the first paragraph of that book you want to read, or take one action about like researching like meal plans or meal recipes, or maybe it's that hobby or that business or that course you want to, or whatever it is, you know, like taking 5 minutes, reading a little bit, like just doing the smallest, tiniest little action. And then that just gets the ball rolling, right?
So true.
And if you did that every day for a week, you'd be much farther, right? And then that's the common thing. And I've been like we were saying earlier, like starting your own business, and you know, just, I think there's probably parallels just with life too, but like taking on more responsibility, there's like, it comes with a lot of like ruthless self-awareness, and having the mindset that you have to do everything at once. And it goes back to like, it's very common in the fitness industry, but like, if you have something, you have to do a task, and you just think, oh, I'm going to do that for 5 hours tomorrow. It's like, well, that's not really realistic. You know, you're going to get burnt out of that. You can't do that every day this week. So maybe let's do like a half hour, 45 minutes of it each day. And then plan that in, you know? It's like just being realistic with your time, being realistic with what you can do sustainably, taking time for all the things you need to do every day, having a
Yeah.
checklist of all those things.
Yes, that's so true. And another big mistake I see a lot of people make when they're trying to do things is just like setting themselves up with unrealistic expectations for what they can get done in like a
Yeah.
certain amount of time. And it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot right off the bat because the goal you set for yourself was unrealistic from the start.
Yeah.
Not like there was no way you could live up to that. But then if you come up a little short, you might have still done really well. But because it wasn't where you set it, which was already too high, you're like, oh, I failed. Like, what's the point? I'm no good. I'm gonna give up. So one way you can avoid that is making sure that the goals you do set for yourself are like you said, like what's that one small thing? It's like taking a turn off a highway to put you on the right road, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
take 1 minute to turn on that little exit, and now all of a sudden you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So the power of little actions is real, and uh, like habits and little changes like that, it's like they don't just add up, they compound because
Yeah.
you can keep doing them because they're realistic and that they can build on top of each other and start to make like a snowball effect where
Yeah.
you're just accomplishing more without doing more and more and more all the time.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, man. Exactly.
Yeah.
How has this whole transition been on your own mental health? Like I know you said like going to college and then so you recently got the diagnosis with ADHD.
Yep.
Um, so what was that diagnosis like and what were the biggest symptoms for you? What kind of things have you been doing for it?
Yeah. So the change from like going to college, starting a business, it's like like I said, when I was in college, when I was undiagnosed, it's like everything was so much harder. So I was like trying to pay attention to things, feeling like stupid almost because I wasn't getting things as fast as other people. But it's like we
Yeah.
process information differently. I would miss things and things just wouldn't fit together. It just felt like the pieces weren't all always there. And so like when I started college, like you saw me, I had like a faux hawk. I was at that time I was like sleeping on my sister's couch somewhere. Thank God for my fiance, came around, found me, saw my potential, and was like, okay, there's something under all this stuff. And she helped me get through it. So a lot of the times it was tough, like from a mental health perspective, to get up to a point where I didn't really have that supportive environment pushing me to go out and do these things. I had to get myself up out of bed. I was driving like my first car is like $500 black Impala. I don't even think it was
Oh
inspected
yeah.
for the last couple months. I was going just like getting there. And like I was like scrounging for coffee change in my car some days, trying to get something for lunch. I remember one time just my friend left his wallet in there. I didn't know. And then when I was looking for coffee change, I saw it and I was like, no, because I'm like such a moral person. I'm like, I couldn't spend that. But I remember being like hungry and I was like, okay, I'll pay it back. And then I did that and I paid him back. And then so trying to go between ADHD making everything harder. I also didn't have glasses at the time, couldn't see the board. Feeling like no one wanted to talk to me or no one liked me, and it was just really me and my mental health being bad. The fact that I got through it is pretty amazing. And so big shout out to my fiance April. She helped me study, kind of kept me motivated, kept me going. But everything was harder just to sit down and focus. Like you feel like you can't focus on something for more than like 5 minutes, and one small thing comes up. It's like, hey, look, a squirrel. Like you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
distracted and
Yeah.
go off. And I found out apparently she knew I had it for a longer than I thought. She's the one that actually encouraged me to go get tested because she was seeing me starting things and not finishing it. Like low self-confidence is another part because you don't do things all the way. So people talk to you like, why'd you do it that way? Why didn't you finish that? Like it's hard to get things done sometimes. So it affects your confidence and it has an effect on your mental health for sure. So like she was seeing me not getting things done. I was running my business on my own with ADHD. Everything was tough. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm working till 10. I'm like, okay, I just thought I was stupid. And I'm like, okay, I just got to work harder then if I'm dumb to get all that stuff up. But I wasn't. I actually, whenever I got it, it was like I was driving a Ferrari the whole time, but I was in the fog. And I had all this power behind there, but I couldn't open it up and let it go because in the fog, you can't see 5 feet in front of you and you don't want to hit a mountain. Whenever I finally got diagnosed with it and found the right prescription, and it felt like that fog was lifted up and everything just made so much more sense. And I was like, oh my God, this is what normal people think like they can just watch things and it makes sense. And then I know it. It's like, what? So the fact that I got where I got up until that point was kind of like a miracle without that. So now it's like, it feels like you feel more normal, but that doesn't mean that it's like magic, right? You still have bad days. Like I get overwhelmed with stuff sometimes. But it really is night and day. And going into it, I was against medication because I was like, okay, it's turn you into a zombie or something, and heard all this stuff. But I would 100% recommend someone who thinks that they have ADHD to go get tested if they think they do, because it honestly changed my life. It allowed me to focus enough to realize things, and things just made more sense, and the pieces kind of fell together. And that's where I realized how I acted when I was younger and drinking all the time had to do with my upbringing. And I remember when I first shared my story, I had this fear that because I worked with moms, people expected me to have a good relationship with mine. And I remember when I first posted about the truth, it was after I got diagnosed, and I posted a write-up and explained, like, this is why I do it. It's probably not what you think. And as soon as I hit that post button, I felt these strong emotions. Like I got emotional. I was like, what the, like, it's out there now. And I was waiting for
Yeah.
everyone to come back at me and being like, what the hell? And say all these negative things about it, but they didn't. It was actually the opposite, and people actually understood. And it's kind of like one of those things where we talked about, if you don't put it out there, if you don't be yourself and let people see the real you, how do they learn to appreciate the real you and like you? If you're
Yeah.
not the real you, it's like they only like the person you're pretending to be. And you feel, and if you don't put yourself out there because you're worried about rejection, how can you get the support? Because when I was reading their comments after I posted it, I was fucking, use my language, I was pretty
Oh,
emotional
listen, don't worry.
reading those commenents as well.
This
And I couldn't
podcast
believe that I
rated
posted it.
R.
Yeah, there we go. I should have been cursing more.
If anything, we're gonna up the
Yeah,
curse. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just add a couple beeps in there along the way. Something. Yeah, but so it so there was a lot of times where it just felt like I can see the connection now between letting my mental health go downhill and feeling like giving up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that almost stopped me from doing what I love and what I'm meant to do, because I didn't take that time for myself. And there's so many people that I helped that I couldn't have if I let that stop me, that fear of failure, that fear of not being good enough. If I didn't take that imperfect action and just say, I'm going to go and do my best and learn from it, there's so many things that would be different. And honestly, I can tell now, I know I would regret it for the rest of my life if I
Yeah.
let that stop me. So if you're listening out there and you're not taking time for yourself and you're letting your mental health go downhill and you're getting overwhelmed, take some time for yourself. It's not selfish. It's not greedy. It's necessary, and you shouldn't feel bad about doing it. Like, you're human. You don't need a reason to go take some time for yourself.
Yes.
And it's different for everyone, how that is.
That's great advice, man. And I love what you said about like if you didn't make that choice, like the impact on how many lives that you've impacted with what you're doing. And like that like really inspires me to do like even this podcast. Like, you know, like that's kind of the whole thing behind it was like, you know, you said when you put your story out there, like you were so scared, and then you know, you said you have to show your true self. And I think like if I can capture people's true self on here and share it, and then you know, other people see that and they think like, oh, like that's similar to what I think, or like it inspires them to share their true self. Because when we share our true selves, and so many things come along with that, like all the things that you're doing, all the great things you're doing, and all the great things other people do too. Like great things come with that when you're, I think, when you're your true self. And
Yeah.
starting, with the mental health, like we kind of have this. There's kind of been this stigma that you don't have it. We all have this idea in our head what our life is supposed to be like, and this whole podcast has been kind of talking about like that, like perfectionism, or like it's like you're on a track, and like it's like we have these things in our mind, whether it's like social programming or whatever it is, like
Yeah.
you go to school, go to the second school, go to the job, and then die, and then you have a kid
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
wife and 2.5 kids, and like whatever. But life is so much more than that, and it's so much more. There's so much more. I don't know the word I'm looking for. So much more. It's so much more beautiful than that. Like there's so
Yeah.
much more nuance to that. There's so much more fruits to life.
Yeah. And even just the simplicity is like, there's so much more. It's like, if you're not happy with the way things are, it's like, there's so much more out there for you to get if you just go get it and take that chance. And I think something that would help a lot of people is realizing that failure is part of the journey. It doesn't mean you lost. It's like, it's good. Go fail as much as you can, as fast as you can, so you can learn the lessons that are going to make you successful.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of messing up. Don't think everyone's going to disown you if you try something and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I talked too much about kind of we talked a lot about coaching and stuff, but what I did. So this will be 3 years in business for me in May. And in that time, I've worked with like over 300 women from like all across North America and stuff like that. And at the end of this year, I feel like it's going to be in the thousands because of the way things are going and what's happening. And it's like, if I let that mental health get to me, if I let that fear of failure get to me, if I let imposter syndrome stop me and say, who are you to do this? Or are you good enough? Or you're not good enough? And believe that, everything would be so different. Like, think of it, instead of thinking what's going to go wrong, think like what could go right. Who are you going to help? Who needs to see you being your actual true self? That's going to make them feel like they can be their true self, right? Because if everyone's just scared to be their true self, they're feeling like they're not in a supportive environment, that feels like you're constantly like hiding away. And for so many people, it's so freeing to be able to be yourself and just have it be accepted. Like when you're with your best friends and you're just like, no matter what I say, how stupid I sound, like these people around me accept me right now. And that's how you recharge. You need to be yourself more and know that it's okay. And if people don't like you, it's like, it's not your job to make everyone like you, right? The right people will like you more because you are your true self.
Yes. That's beautiful advice, man. Seems like a good place to end it. I just want to say thanks so much for coming on, and thanks so much for sharing.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me on, and thanks for always being up for partner exercise in college. I appreciate it.
Woo! Listen, you ever need a partner, let me know, man. We'll go back. I'd love to go back and take some classes. Just pop in for a class or two.
Yeah, go in for a workout sometime.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So we can, if people want to find out more about your services, where can they go?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Greg Cormier Coaching. And that's probably the best place to reach me. Or you can check out my website, gregcormiercoaching.com.
Awesome. Definitely go check this guy out. We're going to send you some salt as well in the mail. We got 4 different kinds of sea salt here.
Oh, awesome.
Cooking salt. This is from our sponsor, the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company. 40% of all proceeds go to mental health programming on PEI.
Nice.
So everybody definitely go check them out.
Awesome.
And I just want to say thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your story and sharing your knowledge, and you're doing great things.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And same to you. You're doing good things. Keep up the great work. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
All right.